The Honourable Dr Brad Pettit.
Thank you, President. Yesterday I had the privilege of meeting with members of the Palestinian Australian community here at Parliament House, including the President of the Australian Palestinian Advocacy Network, Nasser Mashni, Coordinator of Mums for Palestine WA, Hiba Farah, Director of Palestinian Christians in Australia, Jason Domani, and board members of Friends of Palestine WA, Hala Shanabla and Eamon Quader. And I also should know that, the Honourable Dave Kelly, MLA, and Senator Fatima Payman were also present. It was a really powerful meeting, and at the end of it, we actually said to them, "And how can we best represent you?" And one of the things that came out loud and clear was that we would like our stories heard. So with that in mind, I offered to share some of the stories, and the one I want to share tonight is from Eamon Quader. Eamon, many of you might know, a very high-profile Palestinian-born resident here in Perth, and sadly, his sisters, nieces and nephews were all killed in a deadly airstrike on Gaza in October last year. His sister, Ella Quader, and her children, Iman, 5, Phase 3 and 7-month baby Sarah, were killed after their home in the Daraj neighbourhood of Gaza City was bombed. It was Iman's 5th birthday. And on the weekend, Israel launched a deadly attack on the Nusrat refugee camp, and that's where the rest of Eamon's family in Gaza still reside, and this is his story in his own words. I came to Australia 10 years ago with my wife, Samaha, who came to complete her PhD at Murdoch University. Our journey to Australia was hindered by Israel. It was only through advocacy from Australia that we were able to exit. We left Gaza only 2 months before Operation Protective Edge commenced in 2014. One of 7 massacres Gaza has endured during the past 17 years of air, land and sea blockade, during which more than 2,000 Palestinians were murdered. I am an educator and an executive member of Friends of Palestine WA, a community solidarity group dedicated to promoting the cause of Palestinian social justice, human rights and self-determination. My wife is a lecturer at Murdoch University, and we have 2 beautiful Australian Palestinian children. Together, we have lived through and witnessed 258 days of genocide in Gaza, a digital genocide, live in the palm of our hands on mobile phones. This is not unique for me, it's the experience of all Australian Palestinians, their families and supporters. Just 5 days ago, Israel unleashed a barbaric bombardment of Nusrat refugee camp, the refugee camp where I was born and raised, and the same camp where my siblings, cousins and uncles and grandparents were also born. The entire Quader family has lived there for generations. A once densely compacted camp of 60,000 people now houses over 250,000 Palestinians, many of whom have been displaced multiple times and are desperately seeking safety. On Sunday, my father and 6 siblings, including my disabled sister Reem, narrowly escaped death in the Nusrat refugee camp. They fled for their lives with nowhere to go as bombs rained down on their neighbourhood. My brother Anas described the scenes as hell on earth. There are bodies in the streets as Israel carpet-bombed the refugee camp. Over 270 people have been killed, mostly women and children, and more than double that were wounded. Just another massacre in Gaza. The West celebrated the rescue of 4 Israeli captives, but there were no mention of the other 3 Israelis killed during this ready-for-Hollywood scripted rescue. There was no mention of the American-built aid pier that was used to smuggle troops into the camp. There was no mention of the soldiers using humanitarian aid trucks that the starving captives' population surged towards, only to have troops call in their barbaric airstrikes. Whilst the smiling faces of the former captives adorned newspapers' front pages, their bios and stories shared across the world, the media shared scant details of the Palestinians that died. There was no reference to the massacre or the fact that only 7 captives have been rescued by Israeli forces compared to over 100 hostages released through negotiations. The disparity in suffering and dehumanisation compounds the continuing fracture of our social cohesion. Our federal government continues to offer mealy-mouthed words of concerns, calling for a ceasefire and calling for humanitarian aid. Prime Minister, Israel is not picking up the phone. It's time to demand an immediate cessation of the invasion and attack on Gaza. Australia must wield every diplomatic tool it has available, including expelling the Israeli ambassador, recalling our own, ending the two-way military trade with Israel, committing to and supporting the ICC and ICJ rulings, including the confirmation that Australia will fully honour its obligations under the Rome Statute and arrest anyone within our jurisdiction who has an arrest warrant, and finally applying sanctions on Israel until it complies with international humanitarian law. The blueprints are available and Australia must act. We did when Russia invaded Ukraine. We must do so again. So these are Eamon's own words, and I just want to add some of my own words in solidarity and support in his calls for stronger action by Australia, including support for the ICJ process. As many of you will be aware, the ICJ has said there's a plausible case for genocide, and it's hard to find another way to describe the deaths of more than 40,000 people, including 15,000 children over the last 6 or 7 months. Now, I appreciate this can be seen as a divisive issue, but surely all decent people can now see that this war has gone on too long. Surely we can all see that too many innocent people have died. And surely we can all call for the freeing of hostages, but also see when that's done with a military operation like we saw in recent days, that results in the death of far too many innocent people. Surely we can all see that a ceasefire is needed now. And surely we can all agree that what happened in Israel on October 7th was an appalling and horrific act, but also that the collective punishment of innocent people in response to this has been of a scale and horror that is deeply unacceptable. It must stop. Surely these are all things that we can all agree on. Everyone deserves safety and their human rights protected, no matter who you are or where you are, here, in Israel, in the West Bank, and in Gaza.